Farage warns a sense of unity within reform has been dented following that very public row with Rupert Lowe, saying the public does not like political parties that engage in constant infighting. OK, what's next for the embattled party? And GBNews can exclusively reveal, you're not going to like this, that more than 2,000 migrants have crossed the Channel into the UK in just over a week. Among those who arrived is a young Palestinian man with alleged extremist links. We'll have the latest on that with our Home and Security editor. And some more breaking news for you from the United States. The Secret Service says they have shot an armed man outside the White House following a confrontation with law enforcement. We'll be live on the ground with that story for you. Hello, I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is The Weekend. So thank you so much for joining me this Sunday lunchtime. Always appreciate your company, you know that. And what my favourite part of the show, any show, is talking to you out there. So please do get in touch. Really easy to get involved in the show. Talk about what we're talking about, anything you want to talk about, and here's how you do it. Just go to gbnews.com/yoursay and join in our conversation. It's really that simple. I'll read out as many as I possibly can through the show. Now, a great panel for you today. Keeping me company today is journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth and former Conservative MP Neil Parish. So a great panel, and yep, please feel free to send your comments in about Benjamin. I know you do. Before you get started. OK, but before we get stuck into having a go at Benjamin, I know what you're going to do. Let's get the news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you. Just after 1 o'clock, let's start with a recap of the situation in Washington, where we have heard this afternoon that shots have been fired just a block from the White House, with Secret Service agents there shooting a man after he pulled a gun on officers. Police had warned the agency about a suicidal individual travelling from Indiana, and just after midnight, agents spotted him in the area. As they moved in, the man brandished a firearm. With officers opening fire, he has been left critically injured and is now in hospital. That confrontation unfolded just west of the West Wing, but we understand no Secret Service agents were hurt. Police are now leading the investigation. We also understand that the US President Donald Trump was in Florida at the time of that altercation. Well, in breaking news here at home, a 32-year-old man has been charged with the murder of 16-year-old Nathaniel Burrell, who was shot dead in Stockwell in South London on Tuesday of this week. Omar Prempeh was arrested and charged on Saturday and will appear in court tomorrow. Nathaniel was found with gunshot wounds, but sadly died at the scene despite paramedics' best efforts. Police are now reviewing CCTV footage and urging witnesses to come forward, saying they're keeping an open mind about the motive. And in Hampshire, more breaking news for you. A bomb squad there have blown up a car in a controlled explosion. That is after a man rammed through the barriers of a disused army barracks in Aldershot. That man reportedly got out, shouted at guards and slashed the vehicle with a knife before being arrested. Police now say the 54-year-old is in custody, though the incident is not believed to be terror-related. No one hurt, but an investigation, of course, now underway to try and piece together just what happened. In other news, this lunchtime, underperforming civil servants could be incentivised to leave their jobs under government plans to overhaul the service. Cabinet Office Minister Pat McFadden says it's not match fit for what the country needs and is promising a shake-up where top officials' pay is linked to performance. The government insists it will create a more focused and productive civil service, but unions say it's just a soundbite with no real plan for change. Well, earlier we spoke to Labour's Pat McFadden here on the programme, and he said the reforms will be radical, but insists it's not about stripping back the state.
What's really important is to get the best value for money for people, make sure these are good jobs that people want to do, and make sure that when we use public resources, it's where the public really want to see it. And that's why we fought the elections saying, let's hire more teachers, let's hire more police officers, let's make sure that when taxpayers are paying in, they get a good outcome. That's what we want to see.
As we heard from Dawn at the top of the hour, we can confirm that 2,000 migrants have now crossed the English Channel in just over a week. That makes up half of all arrivals so far this year. Among them, a Palestinian man with alleged extremist links. He is accused of posting anti-Israel hate messages and posing in photos with automatic weapons. The campaign against anti-Semitism says he has ties to a former Hamas leader, but the Home Office won't confirm if he has been detained or not. Earlier this morning, the Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp told us that he thinks Labour has lost control of our borders and vowed the Tories would crack down on foreign criminals.
What the Home Office needs to do is identify where this despicable individual is and, frankly, remove him from the country back to Palestine immediately. He clearly has no place in the United Kingdom and potentially poses a threat to our fellow citizens. And this just illustrates why it is so important to get control of our borders and to stop these boat crossings. Unfortunately, since the general election, these boat crossings under Labour have gone up by about 28%. And these are the kind of people that Labour are now letting into the country.
Nigel Farage has defended suspending MP Rupert Lowe, warning constant infighting damages political parties. Writing in The Telegraph, the Reform UK leader said Lowe's public criticism had dented party unity and called it inconceivable to ignore bullying allegations and threats made against the party chairman. Claims, though, Lowe strongly denies. Now sitting as an independent, he insists there's zero credible evidence and says Farage's account is an entirely false and poisonous narrative. An independent inquiry is now underway, with Reform's 5 MPs dropping to 4 amid those escalating divisions in the party. And a man has been arrested after spending more than 16 hours barefoot on top of Big Ben's clock tower, holding a Palestine flag. He scaled the Elizabeth Tower on Saturday morning, finally coming down just after midnight, with police using a cherry picker to bring him down. Video you can see there from the scene shows negotiators warning the man about an injury to his foot, but he insisted he would only descend on his own terms. Well, that incident has now raised some security concerns, with MPs demanding answers on how the man entered Parliament quite so easily. That's the news on GB News. I'll be back with you for another look at the top stories in around half an hour. Now, though, it's over to Dawn.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sam. It's just been pointed out to me that Sam, is dressed in a certain way. I'm not going to go there. I might tell you later, but he might kill me if I do that. Any case, thank you for your company this Sunday afternoon. Really appreciate it. So let's get cracking, shall we? We've got an absolutely packed show for you. So apart from making a quick cup of tea, you're not moving anywhere, all right, for 2 hours. Now, the public does not like political parties that engage in constant infighting. Polite cough, says Reform leader Nigel Farage, as he warns a sense of unity within the party has been dented following that very public row with Rupert Lowe, which centred around allegations of bullying, which Rupert strongly denies. Reform's deputy leader, Richard Tice, was grilled earlier, brilliantly, I have to say, great interview, grilled earlier on by GB News' Camilla Tomley. Let's have a listen to what he had to say.
There's only 5 of you, and you're fighting like rats in a sack. How on earth is Nigel Farage going to command hundreds of MPs, which is your aspiration for the next general election, if he can't keep 4 MPs in check?
Because the truth is, we're working incredibly hard. We're going to work the hardest over the next 4 years. We're going to have the best candidates and the best policies.
You're working hard.
Hang on. And that starts on May the 1st this year. Then it goes into the devolved nation elections next year, and we're going to prove it by results.
Right, OK, I'm just shuffling through my notes here. That's such an impressive interview. You want to get it on Catch Up, which you can do on our website, by the way. Now, we will be speaking to a Reform councillor in just a minute, but they're a bit delayed on the line, so let's see what my panel make of this one first. We have journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth. And Bill, thank you for messaging in. I see you're a fan, although I think you might be slightly sarcastic on that one. And former Conservative MP Neil Parish. So thank you very much for joining me, gentlemen. OK, now, Reform, this has been going on for quite a while now. The story's moved on, in case you've missed it, by Nigel Farage giving an interview to The Telegraph. I'm going to to come to you first one on this, Neil. I mean, it is, as Camilla said, rats fighting in a sack. I mean, if you can't run, it was 5 MPs, it's now 4. How are you meant to run a country? What on earth? I just want to bang their heads together.
Yeah, being part of a party who, you know, are past masters at sort of having a real go at each other. And I was out on the doorstep yesterday, and I can assure you, you know, there's still flack coming over there for that. So, you know, you have got to be united. I think also Nigel is a very good leader, but he does like to rule by decree, really. And I think sometimes, you know, that also boils over. So, I mean, they're going to have to get this sorted. And, you know, I mean, at least we had the excuse that we had sort of 360 MPs. You know, with 4 to 5 MPs, one would have hoped that you could keep them under control. And I think, you know, people will start to get fed up if they go down this route. So Nigel will be absolutely right to try and root all this out. I mean, let's hear, did he threaten the chairman? What did Rupert Lowe do? I think we need to know the truth of this, don't we? And then we can make a judgment.
Obviously we do. Whether we'll ever get the truth is another matter. But the timing of this, Benjamin, I mean, all this happened. We found out about Rupert Lowe's terrible side, by the sounds of the way he's been portrayed, literally the day after he gave an interview to the Daily Mail with, it was mild criticism of Nigel Farage.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think, you know, there is a suggestion that Rupert Lowe, of course, denies these allegations of bullying, of an intimidating behaviour, of threats of violence, which is what he was accused of.
Which happened in December.
Indeed. And also, you know, a former party elite, Ben Habib, has said that this is a playbook that Farage goes by to try and get out people who he thinks is stealing the limelight, is taking control of the party. And so the question is, was Rupert Lowe behaving inappropriately? Maybe. Or is this a tactic to try and shut down people that don't let Farage hog the party? Now, I think the real problem they have, and Camilla Tominey was hitting on this perfectly about the infighting with just 4 people alongside Farage, is that in the country people don't know who Rupert Lowe is. You know, on Twitter he gets a lot of interactions, but I don't think your average voter, your average Reform voter won't know who this fella is. And so I don't think it's so damaging, this argument right now, because most people have got better things to do than notice it. But the problem is Rupert Lowe will be there for the whole 5 years of this parliament, and so he can't get rid of him no matter how much he tries. And what will it reveal about the way in which the party works? Because it has no democratic structure. They're very reluctant to develop that. Farage, you said he's a good leader. He's an incredible orator. I think the question of whether he's a good leader isn't proven.
You could be right
because
there.
Leaders have to get people to come with them.
Can I also add, you see, I mean, it has been a sort of wholly owned party, literally, of Nigel Farage. Now, he's been sort of altering that.
It still kind of is, though.
It still kind of is. And I think, you know, he does not like any form of criticism. And I think if you were to be, you know, if he was and he's got ambitions of being Prime Minister or whatever, you do actually have to be able to deal with people. You have to actually be able to... Even Margaret Thatcher, especially in her younger days, was able to deal with people who didn't agree with her. In fact, she put people in her cabinet, so I think she could argue with them. But seriously, I think, you know, Nigel's going to have to develop a technique where perhaps it's not just Nigel's view that matters, that there are other views. And it's interesting, like you say, the fact that why was this released now? Is it, you know, is it come from within? Because very often within political parties, when something comes out like this, it usually comes from internal sources rather than external sources.
Do you think that's the case?
Well, I think it's very likely. I better not say, because I think Nigel's is very, very good at suing, I think. So I won't say for absolute definite, but I will say that it's very likely, because, I mean, my experience of political parties on my side, on Labour, on all the sides, very often when there's a briefing, it comes from within.
The irony, Benjamin, of Nigel Farage writing for the Telegraph today, and the very first thing he writes is, if the last election taught us anything, it's the public does not like political parties that engage in constant infighting. I mean, but that's exactly what they've been doing. The same as we've seen with the Labour Party, with the Corbyn years. The Conservatives, well, you just tore yourselves apart every single day, didn't you?
Well,
I mean, now we have... And a lot of people are very angry because they were relying on reform. They felt they offered an alternative to the two main parties, and now are they being the self-same thing?
I mean, the thing is, it's an entirely predictable situation. You know, I remember at the result, I joked that the problem with the reform, the result for reform, is that 4 other people were elected besides Nigel Farage, and that's inevitably going to frustrate him. You know, we have seen this, and I'm not saying he's not a remarkable person and a remarkable politician, because he definitely is. But we have seen this in every iteration of his political career, where Nigel Farage falls out with the people around him. A regular on this channel, Susanna Evans, who I thought was an exceptionally talented deputy leader of UKIP. She came across much better than most of them, and yet there was a terrible falling out there. You see it over and over again. And if the question is now so serious that should he be Prime Minister, should he form a government, I think it's right that people really ask themselves whether he has those leadership skills, those real skills. You know, the first rule of politics is counting. And if he can't count on enough people to support a government were he to form one, well, then you're going to have a real mess on your hands. And so what he needs to prove, it's one thing to kick Rupert Lowe out, to suspend him, but what he needs to prove is that he can bring people back in and take them with him, because that's a much harder job.
Can I also add, Dawn, I think, you see, he's very good, Nigel, at finding the things that really worry people and stick the knives in there to make sure everybody's really riled up. But in the end, if you're going to have to run a bigger party, and if you were to have to try and run a government, you are actually going to have to get on with a lot of people. You're going to have to accept it doesn't always go your way. Be a strong character, yes, but I think sometimes strength is being able to admit sometimes you are wrong. I am not absolutely convinced that Nigel could ever quite manage that, and I think this will be interesting to see how all this develops. And don't forget, you know, whether we like it or not, it's probably 4.5 years to the next general election, and so therefore, you know, and you know, like I said, there's only 4 or 5 of them. If he's got rid of one, that's 20% of the party. You know, by this rate, there won't be any left by the time we get to the general election. Actually, with the reform whip.
If reform is dropping 1 a year, then it will just be Farage by the time of the election.
He might quite like that, of course. You never.
You've been in a situation within politics where, you know, you've had news stories that aren't that flattering about you. And what's it actually like from the inside? I mean, how much stress would Rupert... I mean, Rupert's come out fighting and denied everything, obviously, but how much stress does this sort of thing put you under?
I mean, certainly, you know, you get a lot of the national media, and you do start to get a lot of people... I mean, I had them camped out in the garden for 2 days, and in the farm and everywhere, you know. But, you know, all right, I blotted my copybook and I paid the price, and so fair dues. But it is a lot of pressure. It really is a lot of pressure. And I think you'll find... The trouble is, I think perhaps Nigel was saying, well, let's make an example of him, you see. But, of course, it does make rest of the party, the Reform Party, start to get very nervous, because, you see, if you know, what are they, 27, 28% in the opinion polls or thereabouts, you know, you have got to be a credible force. You're not just a protest party anymore, and I think that is where I think Nigel's going to have to adapt his style, and I think, you know, come on, bring people with you. Perhaps he's trying to be sort of Trump-like, I don't know, but I think you can probably overdo the Trump business, and a bit like Trump has overdone Trump, if I can be so bold. And,
no, I think that's...
And, you know, so that's where I see it. And I think, you know, I mean, Nigel is... You know, I mean, when I went to... I spoke about the agricultural crisis, you know, and Labour, you know, taxing farms and all the rest of it, and I spoke at a Reform rally, and it was very American, and it was very Trump-like, you know, and there were lots of music coming in, and then you came in, and then a bit more music came in, and the whole thing did remind me very much of a sort of an American rally. So I think this is where it's all going, I think.
Just quickly, Benjamin, we're running out of time on that, but that's actually a good point. The Trump-like comparison. I mean, sort of like, you know, they have taken Reform on a tour around the country, haven't they?
Well, I think Reform's problem is that you know, it picks up on what a lot of people care about, but it's also a cult of personality around Farage, an extremely effective one.
So you can see the mirroring of Trump there as well in that situation?
For sure, and actually it looks like they might form a government in the Welsh Assembly. If that happens, you'll get to see for real whether they can hold it together or not, and I suspect that will be their downfall rather than their benefit.
Interesting. Well, let me know what you think about this. I know we have been talking about it a lot, but as I said, the story has moved on today with Nigel Farage writing a piece in today's Sunday Telegraph saying that infighting isn't a good idea. OK. Right, for all the best analysis and opinion on that story and so much more, please do go to our website, which is gbnews.com. I am Dawn Neeson. This is GB News, and there is loads more coming up on today's show, including a GB News exclusive. Yes, more than 2,000 small boat migrants have crossed the English Channel illegally in just over 1 week. I'm going to be joined by our security editor, Mark White, to bring you the latest on that story. And we also have a breaking story from the United States for you, as the Secret Service say they have shot an armed man outside the White House following a confrontation with law enforcement. We'll be live on the ground covering that story for you as well. So don't go anywhere. All right, put the kettle on for a quick cuppa, but we'll see you very soon.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Angela, what were the benefits you saw working on Strictly? What actually was this revelation to you that you should do more?
Well, I tell you what it was, mainly. It was because I think I've been dancing since I was 5, one way and another.
Life, haven't
yes.
you? Yeah.
And I'm now 80, so 75 years I've been dancing. So I've always known, as have dance teachers all over the country, that dance is actually the best form of exercise you can possibly do, because it's not just good for your body, but it's also great for your mind, for your mental health, for your mind, for your happiness, for your outlook on life. And of course, you have to use your brain to remember what you're doing. So it's great for all sorts of things. And so I've known that, and dance teachers have known that, but it's always been sort of under the radar when people have thought about how do I get fit. They sort of think automatically about going to a gym or doing a park
on a treadmill,
doing all of that. So when I was doing Strictly, I got wonderful reaction from the public. I mean, I was just overwhelmed with a lot of people saying that I'd inspired them to think about dance. And I thought, how can I put these two things together then? And I was listening to Chris Whitty on radio, he's the Chief Medical Officer for England, saying that because the National Health Service is having such financial difficulties, it would help if we all took more responsibility for our own health by, he said, play football, go to a gym. Why not dance, he said, and I thought, that's what I can do. So because I've been involved with dance for a long time, I got in touch with every one of the dance organisations in the country, the ones who look after ballroom dancing, Latin, ballet, street dance, everything, all of them, and all the ballet companies, all the dance companies, and said, if we can get a national day of dance to get that message across, get dance teachers to open their doors and say, come and see what dance can do for you.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Oh, and by the way, keep your messages coming in. We do have Benjamin Butterworth on the panel today, and I know how much you all love that. Where's this message gone? This is from Joe. Joe, hi Joe, thanks for the message. Says, I think Butterworth is great. He gives us all an idea of what it's like to live on another planet. You love it, Mr. Butterworth. Don't deny that. OK, right. Well, this is a story that's really going to annoy you, possibly even more than Benjamin. GB News can exclusively reveal that more than 2,000 small boat migrants have crossed the English Channel illegally in just over 1 week. That number accounts for half the total of 4,000 Channel migrants who have made the voyage from France since the beginning of the year. Among those who arrived in the past week is a Palestinian man with alleged extremist links. Joining us now is Home and Security Editor Mark White. Mark, A great exclusive. Well done on that. But these numbers are getting terrifying now, aren't they?
They are unprecedented in terms of this time of year, in any year really, since this crisis began in 2016, to have 4,000 plus who have come across the English Channel. Because remember, of course, at this time of year, you have horrific weather conditions in the Channel. And although conditions have improved a little, they're still not ideal for these flimsy, unseaworthy vessels. But the people smugglers are out there in force, along with those migrants trying to get to the UK, and they're pushing these boats out even when the conditions are borderline at best. And that's meant that, as I say, 4,000 plus have crossed, which is 20% ahead of where we were for last year's total. And also, of course, remember last year was 25% ahead of the year before. So what this tells us is that the government smash the gangs policy just isn't working. Now, of course, it would have been wrong to judge the government in the first few months of office for a continued flow of migrants and no results. But we're more than 8 months in to this new government now. And not only has the number of migrants not slowed down, it's actually sped up. It is greater, as I say, than it was at this time last year.
And this can't be just because of the weather. I mean, how much do you think this is the fact that, you know, the Rwanda deterrent has been removed?
Well, I think, speaking to quite a number of maritime security experts, they have said, and in fact, the new head of the Border Security Command has admitted himself that a deterrent is needed alongside the law enforcement approach. But of course, Sir Keir Starmer, on his first day in office, scrapped the Rwanda deal, claiming it was a gimmick. Well, it was a gimmick, of course, because the previous government never got a chance to enact the Rwanda policy. It was bogged down in legal challenge after legal challenge. They just got through the last of the legal challenges, and they were within a couple of weeks of getting the first flights off. But we'll never know whether Rwanda itself would have made any difference. But there are certainly increased calls now for Sir Keir Starmer to look at a deterrent as well, because going forward, it doesn't look like these numbers are going to slow down. And very worryingly, of course, included in the latest numbers is a young man called Abu Wadi from Palestine, with links, according to the Campaign for Anti-Semitism and others who have investigated this individual, with links to extremism. He said some pretty hateful things about Israel and about Jews in general. He has been photographed with deadly weapons, Kalashnikovs and alike. He has been seen speaking at a demonstration, a rally that was organised by Yahya Sinwar. Of course, Yahya Sinwar is the Palestinian militant who was in charge of Hamas, the terrorist in charge of that organisation, who masterminded the 7th of October terrorist attacks and who was killed himself last year by the Israelis. Well, we've reached out to the Home Office. We've asked if this individual has been arrested, having made it across to the UK. They have just said that they don't comment on individuals, but they do take measures to ensure that the public are kept safe. However, we've got some video to show you of this young man, we think, streaming again on TikTok from his hotel bedroom. This morning, we understand that this streaming was taking place either this morning or perhaps last night. So an indication that he's certainly in the country. He's now been given hotel accommodation. We don't know at this exact minute whether he might be in custody. But as of maybe earlier this morning or the night before, he was certainly able to stream live from his hotel bedroom.
Indeed. I mean, let's not beat about the bush here with this one, Mark. This is a chap who posted on his Facebook page, Allah, kill them one by one and don't leave a single one. Allah, destroy them completely, disperse them completely and make the earth fall from under their feet. He's not talking about Israel here, he's talking about Jewish people. A friend of mine who is Jewish was absolutely horrified by this. She says to me, what is my government doing letting people like this into my country? I don't feel safe anymore here. It's time for me to leave. I mean, you know, the Home Office officials have previously admitted they don't know the whereabouts of thousands of these people that have come over in the small boats.
Well, look, this case in itself is deeply alarming that he is in the country. But what's even more concerning, I think, is the fact that he is absolutely not alone in terms of those who hold extremist and potentially violent extremist views who have come into the UK and other European countries in recent months and years, because the people smugglers tell these asylum seekers when they are crossing in the channel, throw your documents away, invent a backstory that is more compelling to help you get asylum in the UK. But in doing that, that means that there can be individuals who are potentially quite damaged, have extremist views, and who we just don't know about. We don't know what the background is. And we've seen in Germany just very recently, in France also recently, here in the UK as well, a number of attacks that have taken place that have been perpetrated by those who've arrived on these shores and elsewhere in Europe as asylum seekers.
Mark, it's terrifying. Just quickly and finally, 4,100 in the small boats this year. These are the ones we know about. Your Border Force contacts, how many do they think are arriving that we don't know about, that don't get logged?
Well, these days, those coming by sea in small boats, pretty much 100% of them are detected and picked up. Remember, of course, they want to get picked up and enter into the asylum system, so they're not trying to get into the country in a clandestine way. However, what you've got on top of this, Dawn, are those that are coming by other means, such as in the backs of lorries. Now, those individuals don't want to get into the asylum system. Often they want to go off and work in the illegal economy, to work for criminal gangs and cannabis farms, in car washes and the like. So they are, you know, separate from a lot of the asylum seekers coming over in the small boats. But that number, we simply don't know, because they're working in the illegal economy and they're unaccounted for. But estimates from those that sort of monitor migratory flows suggest that these days it's at least 1.5 million people who are working out there in the illegal economy.
Terrifying, absolutely terrifying. Great report. Home and Security Editor Mark White. Mark, thank you very much. And Mark will be joining us later in the show as well to talk more about this breaking story and whether we get any response from the Home Office about what this piece of filth, I mean, you look at its Facebook page, it's absolutely horrifying, is doing in this country, and whether the Home Office can get anywhere near him. I'm not holding my breath on that one. I am Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News, and there's loads more coming up on today's show. We'll be debating, a bit of fun for you, are baby boomers holding wealth, or are Gen Z expecting just too much help from the state? Interesting one. OK, so let's take a quick break for the news.
Very good afternoon to you from the newsroom, just after 1:30. Well, the top story this lunchtime. A man has been shot by US Secret Service agents near the White House after an armed confrontation overnight. Authorities say the man was a suicidal individual who had travelled from Indiana and was found near his car just a block away from the White House. When officers approached, he reportedly pulled out a firearm, prompting the officers to open fire in response. He was taken to hospital, but his condition at this stage is unknown, and the police department is now investigating. Breaking news here at home, and a 32-year-old man has been charged with the murder of 16-year-old Nathaniel Burrell, who was shot dead in Stockwell in South London on Tuesday. Omar Prempeh was arrested and charged on Saturday and will appear in court tomorrow. Nathaniel was found with gunshot wounds but died at the scene, despite paramedics' best efforts. Police are now reviewing CCTV footage and urging witnesses to come forward, as they say they're keeping an open mind about the possible motive. Ministers are facing pressure over reports that an alleged Palestinian gunman entered the UK illegally on a small boat. The Mail on Sunday claims Abu Wadi, a former militant, has called for the killing of Jews and posed in pictures with AK-47s. He's believed to have been among 235 migrants picked up in the English Channel on Thursday. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp says the government must find and remove him immediately. Let's take a listen now to Chris Philp.
What the Home Office needs to do is identify where this despicable individual is and, frankly, remove him from the country back to Palestine immediately. He clearly has no place in the United Kingdom and potentially poses a threat to our fellow citizens. And this just illustrates why it is so important to get control of our borders and to stop these boat crossings. Unfortunately, since the general election, these boat crossings under Labour have gone up by about 28%. And these are the kind of people that Labour are now letting into the country.
Reform UK's deputy leader says it was right and proper to investigate bullying allegations in Rupert Lowe's offices. Richard Tice insists the party had to act after Mr Lowe was suspended and reported to police over claims he threatened violence against the chairman. Reform UK also says it has evidence of serious bullying and derogatory remarks about women, allegations though Mr Lowe denies. Party leader Nigel Farage warns Reform must avoid constant infighting, saying it has a duty of care to its staff. It comes after Mr Lowe branded Reform a protest party led by the Messiah, he said, under Farage. And in good news for sun lovers, the UK is set for its warmest weekend of the year, with parts of the country even hotter than Spain and Italy. Temperatures could hit 20 degrees in central England today, with parts of North and Wales reaching just close to that, 19 degrees. That is warmer than Marbella, Ibiza and even Sorrento on the Amalfi Coast, where there are highs of just 15 degrees. But I'm sorry to say the mild spell won't be lasting. We're expecting temperatures to drop from Tuesday, with wintry showers sweeping in. And some rural areas in Scotland could even see lows of -4 degrees. I've just been told in my ear, you just can't win. No, you can't. That is the British weather for you. Those are the latest headlines. I'll be back with you in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either. This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new Royal Newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Hello, welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. I just want to read this one very important message out. Please do, as I said, keep them coming in, gbnews.com/your say. We were just discussing the record-breaking number of migrants coming over in the small boats, including the chap that's on the front of the Mail on Sunday today, who posts on Facebook about how he wants all Jews wiped off the face of the earth. Nice guy. Home Office don't appear to know where he is, but he's in this country. Message from Rosa. She goes, Dawn, your Jewish friend echoes the thoughts of every single Jew in the UK. It's no longer safe. It's time to leave. Looking on the bright side, there will be a couple of 100,000 more places for illegal migrants. What a sorry state the government has brought to a once great nation. Rosa, you are not alone. Lots and lots of people getting in touch with very similar sentiments, so please do keep them coming in. I will read as many out as I can. Now, breaking news today, shots fired just a block from the White House. Secret Service agents have shot a man after he pulled a gun on officers. Police have warned the agency about a suicidal individual travelling from Indiana, and the dramatic confrontation unfolded just west of the West Wing. Joining me now is Chair of Republican Overseas, Greg Swenson. Where are you, Greg? There you are. Greg, thank you very much for joining me again this afternoon. Greg, we don't think this was a targeted attack on Donald Trump, but we don't know. Do you have any more information?
Not a lot of information coming out right now, Dawn. It's probably, you know, anybody who's that close to the White House probably has some suicidal impulse, and that information has been relayed by the police, but it's too early to tell, you know, what his real intentions were. So, you know, we'll keep an ear to the ground on that.
Now, Greg, as we know, there've been I think 2 attempts, obviously at the rally,
2 that we know about,
and on a golf course on Trump's life. I mean, is the situation now getting increasingly volatile with everything that's going on with the Ukraine and the Russia situation?
I mean, it looks to me like more of a mental health issue. I saw, you know, a picture of this guy, and he doesn't look like he's all there. So I can't really connect those dots right now, Dawn. You know, the president has always been controversial, and so the Democrats' hatred for him is well documented. So, you know, we weren't really surprised to see these assassination attempts. There were probably more than 2, but it's 2 that we know about. And of course, they indicted him 4 times in criminal cases, countless times in civil cases. So, you know, they've done everything they can to try to stop him. And I don't think, you know, it doesn't seem like they'll stop at anything. But I do think in this case, it looks like a mental health issue.
And has the security around the president been upped over the past week?
Yeah, it's been up really since the first assassination attempt, and since even before the inauguration. I was in Washington for the inauguration, and it was really intense. You know, basically you have to go through a metal detector to go to any event in and around the White House or even anywhere else in Washington if it was associated with the inauguration. So yeah, security is really tight for this president. And, you know, and I think so far so good. I mean, especially after the real lapse back in July in Pennsylvania when there was just a real breakdown in Secret Service. I'm also told that he's using a lot of private security as well because of the Secret Service. So he's using a lot of Elon Musk's security.
And that's interesting.
In addition,
yeah, because of the rally and the situation that happened at the rally. Is that what you think?
Yeah. Yep.
So it doesn't even trust his own Secret Service.
Yeah, I mean, it was just an absolute breakdown in so many different ways. So, you know, if I were him, I would probably use private security as well.
OK. Greg, thank you very much. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Don.
That's Greg Swenson, Republican Overseas Chair. Thank you very much. OK. Ooh, let's see what my panel make of this one. A journalist and broadcaster, Benjamin Butterworth, and former Conservative MP, Neil Parish. Coming to you first on this one, Benjamin. Obviously, given the history with Trump, with the assassinations, anything you hear about a gunman in the vicinity of the White House, it did certainly got quite close as well.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly sounds alarming. I suspect that, irrespective of who the occupant of the White House is, they're pretty experienced at matters like this. You know, much like when people occasionally are around Buckingham Palace with knives, something we've had on a handful of occasions, they're taken out pretty quickly. Of course, when it happens outside Buckingham Palace, they manage to do it without a gun, but it's not really the way the Americans do it. So, I mean, it sounds like it's a distressing incident, and like this person has some issues that maybe regardless of where they are, they just were suicidal is the suggestion that's been made. But it's certainly alarming, yeah.
It is. I mean, Neil, it's interesting what Greg said there about, you know, the president has had to up private security because of the, you know, he doesn't obviously quite clearly trust, you know, the official.
Yeah, I think that's quite worrying, actually, Dawn, because I certainly hear you wouldn't want that to happen, because basically you've got a sort of private army, if you like, and a public army as well. And I think I can understand to some degree why the president might like to have extra security, but I would just be a bit worried when you've got perhaps two lots of security, that they might mess the situation up. But I mean, at least in this situation, they've taken the guy down, and the president is safe. But I mean, don't forget, this is, you know, the biggest democracy, or not the biggest democracy, but the most powerful democracy in the world. What we don't want is a president shot, and don't forget they have had presidents shot. I mean, not both Kennedy, and then of course Robert Kennedy was going to be president, and he was also shot. I mean, actually, in my younger days, I remember that really well. So there's a lot of history there, and don't forget they were Democrats, not Republicans as well, you see. So I think, I mean, America, because, you know, I don't actually agree with the number of guns they carry in America, you know, and I know, but the Americans all, you know, it's a right of every free American to carry a gun.
More guns than people, isn't there?
Exactly, and I think that is the biggest, in some ways, the biggest problem. It's probably not that difficult to get hold of a gun in this country, but certainly in America, and also you can get hold of, you know, really automatic guns as well, so you can fire off, you know, 100 rounds in 10 seconds or whatever it is, and you know, so the whole thing, I think that's where probably in the long run they need to do more. But like I said, I am very intrigued about this business that the president has private security as well as the you know, both the National Guard and everything else at his disposal. But I mean, they've got to keep him safe. But like I said, I would be actually, if I was talking to Donald Trump, I'd actually suggest it's not a good idea actually to have two lots of security, because I think you'll exactly that could well happen.
OK, well, let me know what you think on that situation at gbnews.com/your say. Now, if you are looking for a bit of an escape in search of some winter sun, maybe, here is a forecast for some of those top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. Low pressure still dominates western parts of the Mediterranean. Outbreaks of showers, heavy rain, some strong winds as well. Temperatures a little below average for the time of year. Through Monday, showers across the west, some longer spells of rain, Spain and Portugal there. Showers across into Italy, temperatures in the mid-teens. But the best of the dry weather across Greece, across into Turkey as well. Plenty of sunny spells here. And the outlook for is it to improve a little, with temperatures rising too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. For many, it's a fine Sunday out there, but we'll start to see a change in store, rain arriving from the north and turning colder next week. Taking a look at the bigger picture then, we do have this area of low pressure down towards the south. Could just bring in a bit of cloud here, but this is the cold front that will introduce colder air through into Monday. But out there, through much of Sunday, plenty of sunshine on offer. Quite hazy at times across the south or west of England, but Orkney and Shetland will see some heavier spells of rain, just gradually sinking southwards. Otherwise, as for temperatures, not doing too bad at all. In that sunshine, staying on the mild side for the time of year. We may even get 18, 19, possibly 20 degrees across central parts of England today. So as we go through Sunday evening, heavy spells of rain, especially across parts of Shetland, and this will gradually sink its way southwards. But for the vast majority of Scotland, staying dry into this evening. Likewise for much of Northern Ireland and across much of England as well. We will start seeing some mist and fog patches develop, and across the far south we'll hold on to a bit more cloud through Sunday evening and into the start of Monday. So as we go through Sunday evening and Monday morning, this band of rain across much of northern parts of Scotland will gradually continue to sink its way southwards, perhaps turning a little bit wintry over the hills. Across much of England and Wales, though, we will see a bit more cloud, so it is going to be frost-free out there for most of us, with a strengthening wind coming down from the north later. So as we start Monday morning then, across parts of Scotland, we have this band of rain with a bit of a wintry mix, especially across the hills. That will slowly sink its way southwards into northern parts of England, bring some patchy rain. Elsewhere, generally a cloudier picture. There will be some brighter interludes, but not as mild here. But across the north, that's where it's going to be turning colder, with a brisk northerly wind developing. Bye-bye.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you for your company this Sunday afternoon. I hope you're having a lovely weekend out there and enjoying the weather if you're lucky enough to have it. Right, lots of you have been getting in touch on gbnews.com/your say. Steve has messaged in saying Britain should feel like a home, not a hotel, and not a migrant hotel. So I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, Steve. It feels a bit like you're saying we should be welcoming more. Personally, there was another message I saw on here, I think it was from Joe, saying that we actually now, Neil, need detention camps. When someone gets off a boat, we put them in a detention camp, so this chap on the front of the Mail on Sunday isn't running around the country when no one knows where he is.
I mean, I think that probably, funnily enough, I was going to raise that, and don't forget, we didn't put them into detention camps either when we were in power, but I think the fact that we are letting so many people in and we just do not know where they are, and we put them in hotels or other accommodation, they freely move around, and if it wasn't for the press and everything else that's got hold of this guy that is so anti-Jewish, and it's absolutely disgusting this is, because I've got lots of Jewish friends, and don't forget, this is wipe Israel and wipe the Jewish population off the map. This is a common theme, unfortunately, with part of the Palestinian population.
This isn't Israel. This isn't
Exactly.
this is just Jewish
coming to Britain, where we actually believe that our Jewish population is safe. I mean, I really want to make them feel at home. And when you've got a friend who says they want to leave, I mean, this is what's worrying me more than ever. And I think yes, we are going to have to. They should be now, I think, detained, processed, and then sent back those that are purely dangerous.
Benjamin, quickly in this one, we are running out of time, but set up detention centres, get them in there until they're processed, until we know they're safe, rather than put them in hotels so they can run around God knows where.
Well, I don't know what the difference really would be between a detention centre and a hotel. The point is keeping them...
We'd know where they were?
Well, exactly, they can't really move in and out.
If they're going to run away, I suspect they'd do that en route to either of those. But, of course, it is outrageous that we don't know where people are. I know that under the last government, there was a report that said something like 15,000 had disappeared, and you wonder how they disappear. We have a problem with the black economy, the illegal economy in this country, and we need to make it harder for them to work.
Indeed. OK, well, this is GB News. I'm Dawn Neeson. There's loads more coming up on today's show. But first, let's get a look at that weather with Catherine. I think it's quite nice down south, but up north, not so good.
No,
Here she is with all your details.
Getting colder up there.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After a largely fine weekend, it is going to be turning colder as we head into the new working week and generally cloudier for most of us on Monday. So taking a look at the bigger picture then, this is a cold front that will sink its way southwards across Scotland and then later into parts of England, introducing much colder air behind it. But through the rest of Sunday evening and into Monday morning, we have this band of rain across Orkney and Shetland, quite heavy at times, sinking its way southwards. Across much of England and Wales, we'll hold on to a bit more cloud as we go through this evening and overnight, with some murky conditions developing across eastern coast as well. But otherwise, generally staying frost-free for most of us, but turning colder across northern parts of Scotland. So as we start Monday morning then across parts of Scotland, we'll see this band of rain turning wintry over the hills, but also quite murky across the eastern coast as well, with a lot of fog here. Across Northern Ireland, some bright spells to start Monday morning, and across much of western parts of England as well. A lot of cloud, but mixed in with some brighter interludes to start Monday. So as we go through Monday morning and into the afternoon, then this band of rain that's across parts of Scotland will slowly sink its way southwards, still holding on to some fog across the eastern coast, so murky here. But across much of England and Wales, there will be some brighter interludes, but some showery rain just pushing in to southwestern parts of England as we go through the afternoon. But a contrast in temperatures slightly down across the south compared to recent days, but much colder across northern parts of Scotland, and with a brisk breeze coming down from the north. As we go through Monday evening, we hold on to the cloudy conditions continuing to sink its way southwards, but a colder start across parts of Scotland on Tuesday. And for all of us, temperatures will be falling away closer to average for the time of year. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye for now.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could have £17,777 in tax-free cash to play with this spring. Cash to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to give you not one, but two sought-after designer watches and the latest Mulberry handbag. How would winning that sound? For a chance to win the cash, 2 watches and a designer bag, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here
We do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock on Sunday, the 9th of March, and this is the weekend on GB News. Thank you for your company this Sunday lunchtime. Now, your stories this hour. Nigel Farage warns a sense of unity within reform has been dented following that very public row with Rupert Lowe, saying the public does not like political parties that engage in constant infighting. Well, what's next for that embattled party, though? And GB News can exclusively reveal more than 2,000 migrants have crossed the Channel into the UK in just over a week. Among those who arrived is a young Palestinian man with alleged links to extremist groups. I'm speaking to the Director of Investigations at the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism about that, frankly, horrific story. And some breaking news from the United States. The Secret Service say they have shot an armed man outside the White House following a confrontation with law enforcement. We'll be live on the ground with that story for you. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is The Weekend. So thank you so much for your company this afternoon. Really genuinely appreciate it. I love reading your messages, and so many of you wanting to get in touch, certainly about the migration situation. I will read as many out as I possibly can. But if you do want to get involved about that or any other story we're covering, very simple to do so. Please do go to gbnews.com/yoursay and join in our conversation. Keeping me company today is journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth and former Conservative MP Neil Parish. But before we get cracking on all the stories we've got for you, let's get the news headlines with the lovely Sam Francis.
Dawn, thank you very much, and good afternoon to you. Let's start with a recap of that news from the United States, where a man has been shot by Secret Service agents just near the White House after an armed confrontation overnight. Authorities say he was a suicidal individual who had travelled from Indiana and was found near his car just a block away. When officers approached, he pulled out a firearm, prompting them to open fire in response. He was taken to hospital, but at this stage his condition is unknown. The police department is now investigating. Here at home, a 32-year-old man has been charged with the murder of 16-year-old Nathaniel Burrell, who was shot dead in Stockwell in South London on Tuesday. Omar Prempeh was arrested and charged on Saturday and will appear in court tomorrow. Nathaniel was found with gunshot wounds, but sadly died at the scene despite paramedics' efforts. Police are now reviewing CCTV and urging witnesses to come forward as they keep an open mind about the motive. Underperforming civil servants could soon be incentivised to leave their jobs under new government plans to overhaul the service. Cabinet Office Minister Pat McFadden says it's not match fit for what the country needs and is promising a shake-up where top officials' pay is linked to performance. The government insists it will, though, create more focused and productive civil servants, but unions say it's just a soundbite with no real plans for change. Well, earlier we spoke to Pat McFadden, who said the reforms will be radical, but insists it's not about stripping back the state.
What's really important is to get the best value for money for people, make sure these are good jobs that people want to do, and make sure that when we use public resources, it's where the public really want to see it. And that's why we fought the election saying, let's hire more teachers, let's hire more police officers, let's make sure that when taxpayers are paying in, they get a good outcome. That's what we want to see.
Ministers are facing pressure over reports that an alleged Palestinian gunman entered the UK illegally on a small boat. The Mail on Sunday claims Abu Wadi, a former militant, has called for the killing of Jews and posed in pictures with AK-47s. He's believed to have been among 235 migrants picked up in the English Channel earlier this week. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp says the government must find him and remove him as soon as possible. He's also said that Labour has lost control of our borders and vowed the Tories would do it very differently.
What the Home Office needs to do is identify where this despicable individual is and, frankly, remove him from the country back to Palestine immediately. He clearly has no place in the United Kingdom and potentially poses a threat to our fellow citizens. And this just illustrates why it is so important to get control of our borders and to stop these boat crossings. Unfortunately, since the general election, these boat crossings under Labour have gone up by about 28%. And these are the kind of people that Labour are now letting into the country.
Reform UK's deputy leader said it was right and proper to investigate bullying allegations against Rupert Lowe. Richard Tice insists the party had to act after Mr Lowe was suspended and reported to police over claims he threatened violence against the chairman. Reform also says it has evidence of serious bullying and derogatory remarks about women. Allegations, though, Mr Lowe denies. Party leader Nigel Farage says Reform must avoid constant infighting, saying it has a duty of care to its staff. It follows Mr Lowe branding Reform a protest party led, he says, by the Messiah under Farage's leadership. And the UK is set for the warmest weekend of the year so far, with parts of the country hotter than even Spain and Italy. Temperatures could hit 20 degrees in central England today, while parts of the north and Wales could reach up to 19 degrees. That is warmer than Marbella, Ibiza and even Sorrento on the Amalfi Coast, where highs are expected of just 15 degrees today. But the mild spell won't last. Temperatures are set to drop from Tuesday, with wintry showers returning, and some rural areas in Scotland could even see lows of -4 degrees. Those are the latest headlines for now. One more update from me at 2:30. Now, though, it's back to Dawn.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sam. Now, before we get cracking on the rest of the stories we've got, I just want to read, lots of you have been getting in touch about the immigration story, about the fact that sort of like record-breaking small boat migrants have arrived, and this piece of filth, I'm going to wave it again, on the front of the Mail on Sunday today, who is over here boasting about how he wants to kill all Jews, and the Home Office don't appear to know where he is, but he does seem to be in a nice, warm, dry hotel room. And of course, lots of you have been getting in touch about this one, and Barbara says, detention camps now. This is the only way to stop it. And Mark says, Labour have been in power for 8 months now, solely accountable for what's going on. We need to push what they are doing. I'm not interested in what the previous government didn't do. Labour are now in government. What are you doing about illegal migration? Good message, Mark. Lots of you saying the same thing. gbnews.com/yoursay to get in touch. Now, the other big story of the week, lots of you getting in touch about this one as well. The public does not like political parties that engage in constant infighting. Who said that, I wonder? Oh, yeah, Reform leader Nigel Farage. He warns a sense of unity within his party has been dented, I can say that again, following that very public row with Rupert Lowe, which centred around the allegations of bullying, which he strongly denies. Earlier on GB News, Reform leader Deputy Richard Tice was grilled by our very own Camilla Tominey. Let's have a listen.
There's only five of you, and you're fighting like rats in a sack. How on earth is Nigel Farage going to command hundreds of MPs, which is your aspiration for the next general election, if he can't keep 4 MPs in check?
Because the truth is, we're working incredibly hard. We're going to work the hardest over the next 4 years. We're going to have the best candidates and the best policies.
You're working
hang
hard.
on. And that starts on May the 1st this year. Then it goes into the devolved nation elections next year, and we're going to prove it by results.
Yes, indeed. Very, very interesting comments there. Didn't really answer the question, did he? So let's get more from political commentator Benedict Spence here on this. Benedict, always the voice of common sense. Nigel Farage giving an interview to the Sunday Telegraph today, saying the very opening line that he writes is, "The last general election taught us anything is the fact the public does not like political parties that engage in constant infighting." Hello?
Yes, rather auspicious, or inauspicious, if you like, start to time as the nascent opposition of this country. Only 6 of them, and or is it 5 of them, and now they're down to 4. Anyway, losing 20% of your MPs in one fell swoop is the sort of thing that people would expect maybe at a general election wipeout, but not when you've only been in the Commons for a good 8 to 9 months. The good thing about all of this is it's happening early on, which means that there is plenty of time for this actually to be resolved. If cool heads do prevail, there's plenty of time for Rupert Lowe and the rest of the party to come to some sort of understanding, or indeed for them to just sever ties and go their own way. It's tricky, though, ultimately. As you say, reform right now are picking up a lot of support from the general public. But if we're being completely honest, it is not because they are offering a visionary new route for the country. It is just because they are not the Conservatives and Labour. And we all know the reason why Labour and the Conservatives are so unpopular is because there is the sense that either they currently don't have a handle on the country, or that they previously lost control in the case of the Conservatives. So for this to be sort of coming out does not suggest to anybody that they are offering something new in the Westminster system, that they are too similar to the old parties, and the way that a lot of this seems to be based on personality clashes, not on policy. Maybe if there was a falling out very publicly about policy, that might be one thing. Rupert Lowe certainly seems to be trying to take it down that route. But if we're being honest, that's not how the responses seems to be being portrayed. The response seems to be that of a couple of egos clashing with each other. So again, we're not even doing proper grown-up politics. It's student politics. And that is what really, I think, made a lot of people fed up with the Tories. As bad as it was that they were ineffective, it was the childishness that I think that really got to people.
Well, this is the problem we've got, Benedict. I mean, sort of like, you know, a lot of people watching this show are messaging in saying, this is so frustrating. You just want to bang their heads together like naughty children. How can they not see that this behaviour is... Well, we know that, I mean, how the party leaders are faring with the public. Nigel Farage is now minus 39. You know, he's going down in the ratings.
The problem is, again, Reform were doing very well because they were an alternative to the major parties. But this doesn't suggest that they are anything too dissimilar to the major parties. Reform is still in a very delicate phase of its existence, in its embryonic existence. It has the capacity to offer people that different path, but it doesn't seem to want to do that. It seems a bit like the first version of the Trump administration. It seems to be rather self-congratulatory, rather happy with itself, and now it's sort of descending into something that doesn't have much of a strong base. And so I can understand why a lot of people would be very exasperated, because they were hoping that this would be something different. But I've said this for some time, it is not yet a serious party. It still has a lot of hard work to do. Now, for all we know, behind the scenes, Rupert Lowe has been very unhelpful towards getting into that position. But it doesn't appear to be in public. He is doing the job of a constituency MP, writing letters to different ministries, raising points that his constituents actually want. And people have been bowled over by this, not because he is some great ideological figure or anything like that, but because he does the job. He does the job which people expect him to do. And that in British politics is fairly revolutionary these days.
Do you think it would be wise for Reform to heal this rift and get back to where they were with having Rupert back in the party?
I think that would be the most sensible thing, even if there are disagreements. I mean, for heaven's sake, you can't have political parties that are absolutely unified on every single point. You know, you will always get some dissent. So this idea that, you know, these two people, Nigel Farage and Rupert Lowe, can't coexist is nonsensical. But the point is about a lot of this, that a lot of people are suggesting that Nigel Farage is in some way threatened by Rupert Lowe. Nigel Farage largely is, monolithic. He's very strong. I don't think Rupert Lowe is about to unseat him as leader. However, Rupert Lowe is that rare thing. He could conceivably survive as an independent MP without reform. Actually, having got in under that banner, he's made enough of a name for himself, and he has enough financial resources and support, I think, to go it alone. So I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. In that sense, it would be best for reform to bring him back inside the tent.
Interesting thoughts there, as always. Benedict, thank you very much. That's political commentator Benedict Spence. Let's see what my panel make of this one. Benjamin, how much do you think Elon Musk has got to do with this? It was only last month that Elon Musk said that, I don't know who this Rupert Lowe is, but he seems like quite a good chap.
Yeah, I mean, Elon Musk doesn't know much about much, quite frankly. So regardless of which party, I don't take him so seriously. But it is a very important point when it comes to reform, because Elon Musk had said that Rupert Lowe should be Reform UK's leader. When he was discussing giving amazing amounts of money, it was in the context of Rupert Lowe. And this guy, who most people had never heard of 8 months ago, has whipped up the most incredible Twitter following. He's got over 300,000 followers. He gets huge traction online. And so he has created his own power base. He has created a popularity. And while I don't think that this is going to be a serious problem in the country, because most people don't notice these skirmishes, it's only a general election that they start thinking seriously about the parties. But the problem this is for Farage is that those very engaged, hardcore, committed reform activists, the people that are paying to build a party structure to make a government possible, they are furious about this. They like Rupert Lowe, they think he's a good communicator. And if this is about sort of petulant personality clashes, well, I suspect the real problem here isn't just this moment of breakdown that we've had this week. It's that it reveals what's probably going to play out over the next 4 years.
You see, I think, the man protests us too much, methinks, to misquote Shakespeare, because I think, where did this all come from? I mean, I think it came from Nigel Farage. I think it's suddenly, all these problems with Rupert Lowe, 3 or 4 months down the line, suddenly come out into the media. And I think Nigel just does not like competition. I'm sorry, he is the big boss man, and he does a good job many times, but he's got to accept the party's bigger than that. And I think that's what, and he's going to have to deal with people like Mr. Lowe, lost the name, Rupert Lowe. And I think that is where I think if he's going to be a proper leader, if he is got a chance of being Prime Minister, Nigel Farage, then he really is going to have to deal with competition. I suspect it's also to deal with money as well, dare I say it. And I think that is where the whole thing has been sort of blown out of...
When you say to do with money, what do you mean?
Well, because you see, the party was virtually wholly owned by Nigel Farage, and then he's sort of sold off, I think, 51%, hasn't he, or supposed to have done. And so, therefore, like I said, so as far as Nigel's concerned, I think you'll find it's not only about, like I said, who controls the policy, it's also about who controls the money as well. And I think, you see, and of course, if Elon Musk is sort of deciding that Rupert Lowe would be the better one to pay the money to, or to lead the party, that really would upset, dare I say it, Nigel Farage. So I think you'll find there's a lot more... It would be good to be a fly on the wall in one of these meetings, because I suggest what we're seeing in public is a sort of a spat about the behaviour of Rupert Lowe, but I think it's much deeper than that, and I think that, dare I say it, I think this was sort of put out there to disrupt the whole thing, to make Rupert Lowe look to be in the wrong, and he may be in the wrong, but he may not be, and I think that is going to be the fascinating, and I think this is going to run a lot longer, because, I mean, the trouble in politics, as you well know, is it's not much the story, it's how long it runs that matters.
Well, this one's been going on for a week already.
This one is going to run for a bit longer.
They keep adding to it themselves by writing pieces in newspapers and putting stuff on social media.
And that's why I said, hell hath no fury, like when Nigel Farage standing up and saying, how dare there be criticism, when in a way I've got a feeling that he may have created it in the first place.
Just want to read this message out. This is from Tag Truth. Rupert Lowe seems to be getting flack from other Reform MPs over saying illegals should be deported. If Reform were in government and did not deport illegals, what would be the point of Reform?
Yeah.
They are just another uni party. They were our hope of Britain's redemption. All hope now gone. We are doomed. Lots of people echoing those emotions that Reform were going to save us from the mess of British politics at the moment. And people are feeling very angry at the situation.
I think you should be hesitant of anybody or any party that tells you that they are your saviour, because that's not how life, let alone government,
that's what
works.
people are feeling.
Yeah. But this is the problem, though, because I think Benedict Spence made a really good point, which is that Reform has felt incredibly self-congratulatory, so pleased with itself. It acts like it's won the next election already. You know, Nigel Farage has talked about him being in Downing Street, which I find incredibly un-British to make those sorts of presumptions. It's not really in the humility of British politics to behave like that.
Someone could say it's just ambition.
Yeah, yes, but I don't think it is. I think they're really very pleased with themselves. And actually, they don't appreciate just how much work there is to do.
Also, I think that what they benefited from, it was none of the above. Basically, people don't want to vote yet again for the Tories because of the infighting. They have not yet quite forgiven the Tory party. Labour hasn't turned out what they were expecting at all, and so the whole thing, broken promises there, along with the migration problems, which was always going to be difficult for whichever government was in power, but no opposition ever accepts that because it's always going to be much better when they come into power, and so that's turned people to Reform. But I do actually agree. You know, the way Nigel Farage sort of prances, dare I say it, prances around on stage, beaming like, you know, from ear to ear. I think some people will find that, you know, shall we say, I'll be polite, gets up their nose.
Well,
and I think that's where, and it's interesting in the popularity stakes now that you know, Reform appears to be more popular than Nigel Farage, whereas in many ways, you know, Nigel Farage created Reform, you see, and so from his point of view, you can see how frustrating that must be, because I'm Mr. Reform, and all of a sudden, Mr. Reform is a lot less popular than the Reform Party, and I think all of these things along with the money is all wrapped up together.
A week is indeed a very long time in politics,
Indeed.
so let's see what happens with this one. Will they get back together again? Will they not? Let me know what you think, gbnews.com/your say. And for all the best analysis and opinion on that story, please do go to our website, which is at gbnews.com. You can see it on your screen there. Now, we want to make your spring spectacular in our latest Great British giveaway with your chance to win £17,777 in tax. Why that figure? In tax-free cash. But that's not all. We'll also give you 2 sought-after designer watches and a designer handbag. Well, I'm entering. Oh, I can't. But if you want to look and feel the part this spring, here's all the details you need on how to do it.
You could have £17,777 in tax-free cash to play with this spring. Cash to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to give you not 1, but 2 sought-after designer watches and the latest Mulberry handbag. How would winning that sound?
Oh my God, that's brilliant news.
For a chance to win the cash, 2 watches and a designer bag, text cash to 63232. 1 entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
An advert for clothing retailer Next has been banned after it's judged to feature an unhealthily thin model.
Well, the advert, which was a product listing for denim leggings on the retailer's website, was deemed irresponsible by the Advertising Standards Authority after a single viewer complained.
A single viewer, OK. In its defence, Next said the ad was created with a strong sense of responsibility to both consumers and society, and while admitting the model was slim, they added that she had a healthy and toned physique that aligned with the nature of its product, its leggings.
Well, is it irresponsible to feature slim models in adverts? Let's debate this now. We're joined by the showbiz broadcaster and body positivity advocate Danielle Broadbent and the journalist and broadcaster Emma Trimble. Danielle, let's start from you. Did the Advertising Standards Authority get this one right?
Absolutely. I mean, loads and loads of brands sell leggings and they don't need to feature a super slim model to sell their clothing and their leggings. Now, from my point of view, the ASA are not saying that this woman is unhealthy. They're saying the way she's being styled and the way she's posing looks unhealthy. And with such a trend going on at the moment with curvy plus size models in the fashion weeks, the trends of weight loss pens and things that are going round, are we encouraging, when we see adverts like this, vulnerable young teenage girls who are quite vulnerable anyway with body image? Are we encouraging eating disorders?
I think the idea that society is somehow, holding up anorexia as a virtue is just an anachronism. This woman is healthy. She's being body shamed for being healthy. I think people really just need to, and I know this sounds harsh, but I think they just need to get over themselves. It's this kind of scrutiny that is actually leading to people being so fixated on the way that people look.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you for your company this Sunday lunchtime. Now, GB News can exclusively reveal that over 2,000 migrants have crossed the English Channel illegally in the past week, marking another record for small boat crossings. Among them was a Palestinian asylum seeker with alleged extremist links who was filmed calling on God to kill all Jews and punish Jews completely. That was in a video posted on his Facebook last year. The Home Office has not confirmed whether he has been arrested, and we don't know where he is. He seems to be posting a video from a hotel. But as I said, the Home Office have confirmed or denied nothing at the moment. Joining me now is Director of Investigations and Enforcement at Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, Stephen Silverman. Stephen, thank you very much for joining me today. I appreciate your company. Now, this is a horrible front page for everybody at the moment, but certainly for Jewish people. I spoke at my friend who's Jewish, was reading this morning, was horrified, and actually spoke about leaving this country. She doesn't feel safe here anymore. What do you make of this story?
Well, it's incredibly alarming. I mean, look, last week, Sir Keir Starmer stood in front of the TV cameras and microphones and said that as Prime Minister, there is nothing more important than defending this country's security. Well, if that is the case, while I understand the immediate issues he's dealing with that elicited that remark from him, we have a situation whereby someone with an unbelievably violent extremist ideology has been able to enter this country. And, if he has done it so easily, he will not be the first. He is just the first to have been exposed. So I'm afraid the Prime Minister needs to get a grip of this situation immediately, because this is a serious matter affecting national security now.
And the Home, you know, we don't know whether he's been arrested. The Home Office can't tell us, which does make you wonder whether they even know where he actually is. How many do you think there are like him in this country?
It's impossible to know, isn't it? Because there's no vetting of these people. And it's important, you know, that the issue of immigration is a much wider topic. But the fact that along with people who might be coming here as valid refugees from conflict, I don't know, obviously this lack of vetting, this lack of control means that people are able to enter this country who have views that are dangerous, not just to Jews here. Someone who wants to martyr themselves for Allah is a risk not just to the Jewish community, but to everybody. And it's impossible, I think, I don't think anyone can tell us how many of these people are here.
It's frightening, isn't it? What do you think Keir Starmer should do about this situation?
Well, the first thing, and the most urgent thing, is if they do not know where this man is, find him, get him into custody and keep him there until they have completely investigated the situation. In the longer term, they've got to get to grips with this problem, because if the defence of the country is the Prime Minister's primary objective, as he himself has said, this is completely undermining our national security.
Indeed, we're just showing our viewers now a picture of this person seemingly in a hotel room in this country, quite happily posting stuff on social media again. And this is the thing, isn't it, Stephen? He's not shy about how he feels, what he wants to do. He's not hiding it even.
Because, well, he isn't hiding it because he believes that he is right to be holding these views, and that it is his duty to carry out his wishes and what he believes to be the wishes of his God. This is pure Islamist extremism. It is dangerous to Jewish people. It is dangerous to everybody. You know, the target is certainly Jews in Israel, then Jews in everywhere else. But, you know, as we are seeing right now in Syria, it will be other minorities as well.
Indeed.
So, you know, this is the seriousness of this situation cannot be overstated.
Brilliant. Stephen, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. That is Stephen Silverman, Director of Investigations and Enforcement at Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. OK, let's see what my panel make of this one. Benjamin, I'm going to come to you first, actually, because Syria was mentioned then, and you have just come back from Syria, haven't you?
I have, yeah. I was there for 7 days, and it was quite extraordinary to see, because after 54 years under the rule of Assad, the people are now able to speak freely, and the hatred of Assad, pretty much universally, is incredibly telling. But I went to Idlib, which is the area that was dominated by Al-Qaeda and has links to ISIS, and where the new ruler of Syria comes from. And I have to say, it was a bit of an intimidating place. It looked a lot more like Afghanistan than the rest of Syria. But what was so notable to be there, and it was interesting of what the gentleman just said about how, of course, the man that's entered Britain is a threat to everyone, as well as the Jewish people he's a threat to, is that seeing so many people in Syria and listening to their stories, so many of those people have been terrorised. You know, Syria isn't a country of terrorists, it's a country of the terrorised. The vast majority of these people have been subjected to Islamist extremists and extremists from other countries in so many ways. And so that's what was very horrifying. And we've seen the stories in the last couple of days of hundreds of people murdered in Latakia, which is on the coast between Turkey and Lebanon, that section of Syria. And that is a part of Syria that is still controlled by people that support Bashar al-Assad. And so there was always going to be fighting there because it's different to the rest of the country. And the Alawaiti ethnic minority overwhelmingly supported Assad. It was the group that he was from. And so that's the fighting you've seen. And so, you know, it's incredibly disturbing and concerning. It's also worth noting the context, that it's it's not as though it's spreading across the whole of Syria and that there's been some kind of shift.
Yeah.
So I think that isn't likely to happen. But it's alarming. And, you know, I was speaking to someone, I was speaking to a couple of Syrians today. One of them is from that part of the country and says he can't contact his relatives. Others I've spoken to have been saying about how they just want Syria to be calm again. You know, they really are over the moon that Bashar al-Assad is gone, and they'd hope that the new government doesn't turn out to target ethnic and religious minorities.
I think, you see, the problem, isn't it, is that it's wonderful that Bashar al-Assad has gone and his regime, but of course what looks to have happened, and I don't know all the details, is that you've got security forces now actually taking what is vengeance, basically, on people that supported the Assad regime, and you can understand to a degree why they're doing it, but it shouldn't be done through government forces. Now, this has to be proved one way or the other, and I think this is a dangerous situation. And I think, you know, coming back to, as Stephen was saying, you know, this guy coming into this country with these views is a danger to absolutely all of us. And I think, you know, we are going to have to completely review the situation. They are going to have to be actually taken to and interned almost until situation is that you know who people are, because it is a nonsense that we sit here now, don't we, and the Home Office and the police are actually looking for this guy who's actually posting on social media and others in a hotel that this British taxpayers are actually paying for,
yeah.
And meanwhile having horrendous views to the Jewish people and to us all, because I mean they're not going to stop, as Stephen quite rightly said, with just Jewish people. I mean they've got a vendetta against the world, and so we really have got to wake up, smell the coffee, and get on with this, because you see the deterrent is no longer there. I mean, Rwanda, good, bad, or indifferent, it was a deterrent, and I think this government will have to come up with not only internment, if you like, but also a deterrent, because otherwise they just think that Mr. Starmer is a nice man and let's cross the channel, and we're very early in the year to have this number. That's the trouble.
We've got to finish there, but how do you feel? I mean, let me know, gbnews.com/yoursam. Dawn Newsom, Mrs. GB News. Loads more coming up on today's show. We'll be debating, are baby boomers hoarding wealth, or are Gen Z expecting just a little bit too much help these days? And that's after your headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you from the newsroom. The top story just after 2:30. A man has been shot by US Secret Service agents near the White House after an unmanned armed confrontation overnight. Authorities say he was a suicidal individual who had travelled from Indiana and was found near a car just a block away. When officers approached, he pulled out a firearm, prompting them to open fire in response. He was taken to hospital, but at this stage his condition is unknown, and the police department in Washington is now investigating. A 32-year-old man has been charged with the murder of 16-year-old Nathaniel Burrell, who was shot dead in Stockwell in South London this week. Omar Pempe was arrested and charged on Saturday and will appear in court tomorrow. Nathaniel was found with gunshot wounds on Paradise Road, but sadly died at the scene despite paramedics' efforts. Police are now reviewing CCTV footage and urging witnesses to come forward, as they say they're keeping an open mind about the motive. Ministers are facing pressure over reports that an alleged Palestinian gunman has entered the UK illegally on a small boat. The Mail on Sunday claims Abu Wadi, a former militant, has called for the killing of Jews and posed in pictures with AK-47s. He's believed to have been among 235 migrants picked up in the English Channel on Thursday. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp says the government must find and remove him immediately.
What the Home Office needs to do is identify where this despicable individual is and, frankly, remove him from the country back to Palestine immediately. He clearly has no place in the United Kingdom and potentially poses a threat to our fellow citizens. And this just illustrates why it is so important to get control of our borders and to stop these boat crossings. Unfortunately, since the general election, these boat crossings under Labour have gone up by about 28%. And these are the kind of people that Labour are now letting into the country.
Reform UK's deputy leader says it was right and proper to investigate bullying allegations against Rupert Lowe. Richard Tice insists the party had to act after Mr Lowe was suspended and reported to police over claims he threatened violence against the chairman. Reform also says it has evidence of serious bullying and derogatory remarks made about women, allegations, though, Mr Lowe denies. Nigel Farage warns that the party must avoid constant infighting, saying it has a duty of care to its staff. It follows Mr Lowe branding Reform a protest party, he says, led by the Messiah under Farage. And the UK is set for the warmest weekend of the year so far, with parts of the country hotter than even Spain and Italy. Temperatures could hit 20 degrees in central England today, while parts of the north and Wales reach quite close to that, just 19 degrees. That's warmer than Marbella, Ibiza and even Sorrento on the Amalfi coast, where there are highs expected of just 15 degrees. But that mild spell won't be lasting. Temperatures are set to drop from Tuesday, with wintry showers returning in the north. And some rural areas in Scotland could even see lows of -4 degrees. That's it from me for this afternoon. Sophia Wensler will have a full roundup at 3 o'clock. I'm off to enjoy the sun, and Dawn will be back with you after this.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Corton Beach is not a naturist beach. Lewd behaviour will not be tolerated and may be recorded by CCTV and reported to the police.
It says causing an offence to others is a criminal. Causing offence to others is a criminal offence, and all cases will be reported for prosecution. And a spokesman then says we're not targeting or trying to outlaw the naturists. The parish council recognises that naturism in the UK is legal.
So what are they doing then?
Well, let's talk to the organiser to find out. The British Naturism Eastern Regional, Nigel Newman, joins us now. Morning, Nigel. Sorry, I think it's the first time I've interviewed somebody without their top on. But, you know... Right, Nigel, what's going on down there? Because I think we pretty much support your right to be able to, you know, swing free on a nice warm day.
Well, the thing is, Corton Beach in Suffolk is very, very popular and has been since the 1970s for naturists. And one of the reasons for that is right next to a car park with a cafe with toilets, and this bit's important, there's a ramp that goes right down to the top of the beach, which is ideal for disabled naturists. And that's one of the reasons that it's so well attended over the years. And what's happened is back in December, this sign appeared, great big yellow sign with black writing saying, warning, as you read out, Corton Beach is not a naturist beach. Well, that's not accurate because every beach is a naturist beach. Naturism is not unlawful. And the sign then goes on to suggest, because it's in the very next sentence, that lewd behaviour will not be tolerated. Well, British naturism totally agree with that statement. Lewd behaviour should not be tolerated. But lewd behaviour and naturism are two completely different things.
GB News, the People's Channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new Royal Newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Hello, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Needham. Thank you for your company this afternoon, and thank you for all the messages. Many of you saying, I'm sticking with Reform. It can't be any worse than Labour or the Conservatives, so that's very interesting there. But many of you would like our Rupert and Nigel to sort it out, like grown men, not like children, and get the party back on track. So keep those messages coming in, gbnews.com/your say. Now, there is plenty more coming up on today's show, but before that, Nana is up at 3 o'clock and she joins us now to tell us what she's got coming up.
Oh, good afternoon, Dawn. Honestly, this reform business is carrying on, isn't it? They're kind of still squabbling, which is disappointing because we'd like our politicians to, I don't know, just act in a bit more of a mature manner. All of them, not just Reform, the Tories and Labour. So I'm asking, have Reform peaked too soon? Because they were riding high in the polls, then now they've lost one of their MPs. They've only got 5, so now they're left with 4. I'll be asking you that. Plus, Sir Keir Starmer. Now, his party appear to be making a move that you would expect the Conservatives or a right-wing party to do. They are cutting blob waste. Wow. So has he gone up in your estimations after doing or potentially moving towards that? And in my niggle today, I'm going to focus on the fact that, well, nobody seems to be mentioning, in particular the Labour Party, that we have just reached 2,000 people crossing the Channel in 1 week via small boats, and nobody seems to be talking about it. So we'll be discussing all of that in a matter of moments.
Brilliant, that sounds a cracker. You don't want to miss that. That's Nana at 3 o'clock straight after this show. OK, now let's tackle another issue that I know is close to many of your hearts, generational divide. Well, evidently there's an uncomfortable truth. Baby boomers hoarding wealth, or are Gen Z expecting too much help from the state? A recent YouGov poll found that some 61% of Gen Z, that is 18 to 27-year-olds, if I remember rightly, feel they have to work harder than their parents did, with housing and rent prices soaring and wages struggling to keep up. Is it justified for the younger generation to argue that they have it harder, though? Let's see what my panel make of this one. Benjamin Butterworth, who is in the younger generation, but not Gen Z, I don't think.
Very young.
Very young. And a former Conservative MP, Neil Parish, I think he's safe to say is a boomer.
Yes, right.
A proud boomer.
Yeah.
OK, now, this is a report. I mean, we've always had the generation gap. We've always argued over it, haven't it? But this new report is saying that actually, Neil, older people, and I include myself in this, have had it much easier than Gen Z and the younger generations. What's your comment?
I think what we did have easier, it was easier to get jobs, it was easier to get a home, and though interest rates were high, the prices were a lot lower. And I think, yeah, there is a problem, and I have some real sympathy for young people now because they're working damned hard, and it's very difficult because every time, you know, you try to put enough money together to get a deposit on a house or whatever, it's almost impossible. Now, if you get help from my generation and younger, the baby boomers, those families probably do okay. But you know, yes, it is a struggle, and it'll be interesting to see if the Labour can deliver all these new houses. Will it actually drive prices of homes down and make them more available? Because in the end, that's a lot of what it's about. I also think there is a lot more competition for jobs. I also think the jobs naturally are much more sophisticated because, don't forget, in my day there was still a lot of manual work to be done, and in some ways it was easier. If you weren't perhaps terribly intellectual, you could get into a job and then build yourself up, and I think there is actually much more pressure. So Benjamin, I've got some sympathy.
OK, not many of you do, though. It's keep these messages coming in. Molly says, no way, Gen Z will never work as hard as my husband and myself. And Mo Chi says, I started work at 15. Crumbs, they are still sitting on the potty at 15 these days. Benjamin.
But it's the wrong question to ask whether it's about hard work, because I don't doubt that your typical baby boomer worked hard.
We did, yeah.
And we know actually there's evidence that Gen Z, I think it was in one of the papers today or yesterday, worked longer hours than their parents' generation did. So there's no doubt that they work hard. I don't think there's a change in that. You know, work hours now, you can never log off with emails and everything else. But the difference is where that hard work goes to, what the possibilities with the financial return is. And there's just no doubt whatsoever that not only has it got harder, but it's got all almost impossible if you're on an average income and you're not from parents that are wealthy. You know, the amount of wealth that baby boomers had is £2.7 trillion. It's gone up £1 trillion in 10 years, and that means anyone under 40 can't get a house. Can't get a house, what are you going to do with your life?
Well, you could always go on holiday to Syria, Benjamin. In any case, we've run out of time on that one.
I can afford a house there.
I expect you can. Yeah.
If you are in search of some winter sun, Syria possibly, here is the forecast for some of those top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. Low pressure still dominates western parts of the Mediterranean. Outbreaks of showers, heavy rain, some strong winds as well. Temperatures a little below average for the time of year. Through Monday, showers across the west, some longer spells of rain, Spain and Portugal there. Showers across into Italy, temperatures in the mid-teens. But the best of the dry weather across Greece, across into Turkey as well. Plenty of sunny spells here. And the outlook for is it to improve a little with temperatures rising too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. For many, it's a fine Sunday out there, but we'll start to see a change in store, rain arriving from the north and turning colder next week. Taking a look at the bigger picture then, we do have this area of low pressure down towards the south. Could just bring in a bit of cloud here, but this is the cold front that will introduce colder air through into Monday. But out there, through much of Sunday, plenty of sunshine on offer. Quite hazy at times across the south or west of England, but Orkney and Shetland will see some heavier spells of rain, just gradually sinking southwards. Otherwise, as for temperatures, not doing too bad at all in that sunshine, staying on the mild side for the time of year. We may even get 18, 19, possibly 20 degrees across the central parts of England today. So as we go through Sunday evening, heavy spells of rain, especially across parts of Shetland, and this will gradually sink its way southwards. But for the vast majority of Scotland, staying dry into this evening. Likewise for much of Northern Ireland and across much of England as well. We will start seeing some mist and fog patches develop, and across the far south we'll hold on to a bit more cloud through Sunday evening and into the start of Monday. So as we go through Sunday evening and Monday morning, this band of rain across much of northern parts of Scotland will gradually continue to sink its way southwards, perhaps turning a little bit wintry over the hills. Across much of England and Wales, though, we will see a bit more cloud, so it is going to be frost-free out there for most of us, with a strengthening wind coming down from the north later. So as we start Monday morning then, across parts of Scotland, we have this band of rain with a bit of a wintry mix, especially across the hills. That will slowly sink its way southwards into northern parts of England, bring some patchy rain. Elsewhere, generally a cloudier picture. There will be some brighter interludes, but not as mild here. But across the north, that's where it's going to be turning colder, with a brisk northerly wind developing. Bye-bye.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Newsom. Thank you for your company. Now, as the awards season comes to a close, oh my God, it's gone on, isn't it? It's the fashion trends that have sparked controversy rather than the awards. And some of those fashions leave a little bit to be desired, I would say. Charlie XCX's impressive haul of 5 Brit Awards. OK, yeah, fine. I can't remember what she won them for, but I can remember what she was wearing. Jaws were dropping at the braless black dress last week, which was basically a neck curtain, but at least she remembered to put her knickers on. Some of them don't. But she's one of the many examples of celebs embracing the free the nipple fashion movement, replacing the demure TikTok trend of last year, which is now bitten the dust. Now, I mean, I know I've got 2 gentlemen on the panel with me, and I've written a column about this for a woman's magazine this week, which is why I want to talk about it, and it's Fashion Week, by the way. But I've been stunned at how many women going up for these awards dues are literally wearing a bit of neck curtain, 2 sequins, and some pants, and sometimes not even wearing the pants. Now, Benjamin, I know you're a fashion expert, we can see, but men going up to... Look, that's... who is
Looks
that
like she's, like, sat at a bus stop or something, like a bloke.
Well, quite. Now, men going up to get awards and perform are wearing suits and ties.
Yeah.
And women are wearing, well, looking like hookers, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, your words, not mine, before we get cancelled.
No, absolutely. Yeah. But that is, you know...
Look, I think, I mean, it's interesting because, you know, there's been lots of female empowerment, and the music industry now has more big-name female stars than male stars, which is a big change on tradition, and yet still they're dressing in this way. So, but are they dressing this way because they feel empowered by their bodies? I think that's the message. Whereas a generation ago, you know, when you were editing newspapers, you wanted a woman that was, you know, scantily clad because the men would like it.
Exactly.
And so I think the reasons for it have changed.
I think, personally, as a woman, the only woman on the panel, I think that women have been sold a bit of a lie on this. I think we're reclaiming our bodies, but we're still giving men what they want, which is going out wearing not many clothes. Now, Neil, you've got a 17-year-old granddaughter, so she's in this category where she's looking at these young female pop stars thinking, this is what we should all be doing.
Yeah, I mean, I've got, like, so she's Aino because she's half Japanese, and she's a lovely girl, and she'll go out in reasonably revealing clothes, but she still has that sort of idea that it's probably best to sort of leave a little bit to the imagination. And I think the trouble with a lot of these clothes, don't you, now, is that yes, it might be sort of very exciting for the males to watch, but I think perhaps it's much more tasteful, isn't it, to leave a bit to the imagination so that you... And I think, in a way, that's much more attractive at the end of the day, and I think if you flaunt too much, dare I say it, I'm not sure, even though perhaps we might find it interesting, I'm not sure it's the best way forward.
We'll leave it there on that fashion note. Thank you very much for your company. Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you, Neil. Don't go too far, because Nana is up next. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I've been Dawn Neeson. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Nana's up next. Here's the weather for you.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After a largely fine weekend, it is going to be turning colder as we head into the new working week and generally cloudier for most of us on Monday. So taking a look at the bigger picture then, this is a cold front that will sink its way southwards across Scotland and then later into parts of England, introducing much colder air behind it. But through the rest of Sunday evening and into Monday morning, we have this band of rain across Orkney and Shetland, quite heavy at times, sinking its way southwards. Across much of England and Wales, we'll hold on to a bit more cloud as we go through this evening and overnight, with some murky conditions developing across eastern coast as well. But otherwise, generally staying frost-free for most of us, but turning colder across northern parts of Scotland. So as we start Monday morning then across parts of Scotland, we'll see this band of rain turning wintry over the hills, but also quite murky across the eastern coast as well, with a lot of fog here. Across Northern Ireland, some bright spells to start Monday morning, and across much of western parts of England as well. A lot of cloud, but mixed in with some brighter interludes to start Monday. So as we go through Monday morning and into the afternoon, then this band of rain that's across parts of Scotland will slowly sink its way southwards, still holding on to some fog across the eastern coast, so murky here. But across much of England and Wales, there will be some brighter interludes, but some showery rain just pushing in to southwestern parts of England as we go through the afternoon. But a contrast in temperatures slightly down across the south compared to recent days, but much colder across northern parts of Scotland, and with a brisk breeze coming down from the north. As we go through Monday evening, we hold on to the cloudy conditions continuing to sink its way southwards, but a colder start across parts of Scotland on Tuesday. And for all of us, temperatures will be falling away closer to average for the time of year. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye for now.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could have £17,777 in tax-free cash to play with this spring. Cash to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to give you not one, but two sought-after designer watches and the latest Mulberry handbag. How would winning that sound? For a chance to win the cash, 2 watches and a designer bag, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome to GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course, it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me for the next few hours, journalist and broadcaster Danny Kelly, and also CEO of the Youth Vote